Hello, my name is James Clegg. I work for the University of Edinburgh's Talbot Rice Gallery, and I'm the curator of Pine's Eye. Pine's Eye is a large group exhibition that runs across the gallery's distinctive spaces. As the exhibition was closed due to the 2020 pandemic, I decided to make a series of short videos that would explore each of the 12 artists in turn. This week we're going to look at the work of Beatriz Santiago and Muñoz. We're showing a showreel of 5 of Beatriz's films. Beatriz is a filmmaker who often makes films about her native Puerto Rico. This is an island with a very complicated culture and ecology. Its culture has been shaped by Spanish colonialism, by the slave trade, and by the displacement of the indigenous Taino people. And likewise, its botanical makeup has been transformed through plantations and through the introduction of flowers and plants from Africa and Europe. And it still carries, or still has, its very own and very potent flora as well. And it's to this that the first film turns our attention. The first film in the series is called Pharmacopoeia, and it comes from the Greek word which means the art of making drugs from plants. So this film is a kind of index of some of the native species and some of the stories and myths that have grown up around them. This is also the first of 2 of the films that introduces to Pablo Diaz Cuadrado, who is an inhabitant who has this incredible knowledge of the plants and animals of the island. Beatriz makes films in a very responsive way, a way that's open to chance. So she allows her encounters with different people and the sort of emergence of different events to really shape what the film becomes. And I think this is a really interesting way of making films in response to Puerto Rico and also to nature as well. We're often familiar with narrative films, and I would suggest that narrative films tend to filter out certain aspects of the world. If we see filmmaking as a kind of portal onto the world, then narrative only really allows things through when they've got a certain structure to them, when they've got a start and a middle and an end, and when they've got this kind of linear sense of causality about them as well. Whereas Beatriz's films open out to something that's very different, something that's very hybrid and adapted and makeshift. And I think that's really important, that she's getting us to look at this situation in a different kind of way, a way that doesn't attempt to simplify it or reduce it, but allows it to kind of bubble away, this sort of complex cauldron of different ideas, different time periods, and different peoples. And I think the next film is a really good example of this. It's called La Cabeza Mató a Todos, or The Head That Killed Everyone. And it builds on this indigenous mythology.
Un conjuro o una maldición requiere un esfuerzo análogo a la magia del conjuro. Si la magia es la destrucción total y absoluta de la maquinaria de guerra, si lo que quieres es desprender las amarras del aerostato que se partan por la mitad como nuez. El conjuro requiere que se consuma una cantidad sustancial de energía.
We see in this film an activist and someone who's very interested in botany called Mapenzi Chibal Nonno. And she is kind of seems to be bound up somehow with this mythology, but also with a more contemporary culture. So we also hear the sounds of Peruvian punk music, for example. So within Beatrice's films, this all comes to mix together. The next film is called Godzilla. And this is a film that was shot after Hurricane Maria hit the island. This is the worst storm ever recorded in Caribbean history. And so it really devastated the island and it created this kind of aftermath in which people really struggled to get water supplies and to get food as well. But typical of the way that Beatrice works, this film is made in this open and improvised style as well. So this isn't a disaster movie. This isn't a film that has a sense of direction about it. It doesn't have these kind of agents that are moving towards some kind of goal. This is a film that's much more about the directionless nature of storms and natural events. Next in the film Matrua, we meet again Pablo Diaz Cuadrado, who this time invites us more into his home. So Pharmacopoeia takes on the form of this kind of encyclopedic repository of his knowledge of native species. This is more about his kind of life and his growth on the island. It turns out he's the last surviving member of this commune that's set up there. And we really learn that he's someone who's living with this sense of precarity. His home, his tools, the garden around him feels very makeshift and ad hoc. It's something that he's kind of improvised into existence. And he seems to be building for some kind of future in which there might not be water or food. There's a sense of him wanting to survive any eventuality.
Yo no sé si tú lo puedes entender en el campo espiritual, pero hasta los indígenas han usado, especialmente los taínos, vamos a hablar de los taínos ya que estamos hablando de aquí, alucinógenos para ampliar su conocimiento. Porque las drogas sirven para ampliar conocimiento. Según sirven para dormir conocimiento, pueden servir para ampliar la mente. Me ha servido más. O sea, amplié mi mente y la abrí y vi, podría decir, otro universo y me atrajo hasta aquí.
The last film in the show reel is called Black Beach, Horse, Camp, the Dead, Forces. And this is a film that shows us some of the inhabitants of a small island called Viquez. This is an island that was the home for the US military base. So for about 60 years, the US military tested weapons around Puerto Rico. And this is something that the inhabitants feel has had a huge impact on their health and well-being. So there's a really high rate of cardiovascular disease and a really high rate of cancer on the island, and they claim that it's as a result of this testing of chemical weapons. And what we've really started to see through Beatriz's films is that Puerto Rico isn't this enchanted island as the Spanish christened it, but it's an island that's been hugely affected by industrialization and by these other sort of processes, these other events that have in effect kind of poisoned it and damaged it and hurt it. The military base has now become defunct, it's been closed. And what we see in this film are some of the inhabitants performing rituals in order to try to restore the cosmic balance in this region, including an artist who's replanted this sacred tree. The Spine's Eye is an exhibition about the relationship between people and nature. It has to ask these questions about how we look at nature. How do we represent nature accurately? How do we get a picture of it that's going to help us to foster a stronger relationship with it? And I think Beatriz's films offer us a very interesting alternative view of how nature kind of happens, how it emerges. Her films present us information in a way that I think feels very other. It feels like it doesn't conform to our expectations of narrative film. It's not narrative film. It's given us something that's about all these different parallels and these overlaps and these crossings of different energies and different forces. And I think it's that kind of complex kind of Creole reality that we have to open ourselves up to if we're going to have a better understanding of how nature works and how it operates.